sitting there with the ultrasound tech, just losing my mind. And I found myself asking God questions like, are you kidding me? Really? At this time? What kind of God does this, right? And I was, standing there, and I felt so clearly that God said, this is painful. Which him just saying that was thank you.
You're listening to the Ferment Podcast, conversations about worship and transformation. Today's guest is Sarah Elmer. Sarah is a recording artist, worship leader, and mother of three. Sarah has been featured on numerous Vineyard recordings, including Kyrie, Eleison, and Wear the Crown. This episode is brought to you by Monk Drums. Monk Drums is a creative desert venture that strives to combine beauty and business as one heartbeat. Monk Drums' main focus is handcrafted wooden drums that allow us to love, assist, and serve all who accompany us on this path. Use the coupon code FERMENTPOD to get 5% off your Monk Drums order. Find them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Monk Drums, and every Monday look for hashtag Monk Drum Monday. Speaking from personal experience, Monk Drums are wonderfully crafted and they sound amazing. They blend the best traits of both the djembe and the cajon, and I found them to be incredibly versatile in both the live and studio environment. Check them out at monkdrums.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends at worshipteam.com. Worshipteam.com comes preloaded with over 12,000 songs, and new songs are being added all the time. Songs from Hillsong, Bethel, Vineyard, Six Steps, Jesus Culture, just to name a few. Service building with Worship Team is a snap, and all the songs are completely legal and licensed. Visit them at worshipteam.com today for a free trial. Complete worship planning with thousands of songs, easy interface, mobile apps, and legal rights for your church. All you need in one place, worshipteam.com.
All right, what up, everybody? You are listening to the Ferment Podcast, and I'm your host, Adam Russell, and I have a really good friend who is already laughing at me. We've been here 30 seconds. She's already laughing at me. This is my good friend, Sarah Elmer. Sarah, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Yay, what up? All right, I'm excited for this conversation because you're one of my favorite people, and you're a goofball. And I mean that in the nicest way. And by the way, you're the first person I've called a goofball on the podcast.
Oh, that feels significant.
That feels significant. Yeah, you know what? I think a lot of people who are going to be listening to this podcast don't know you.
Yeah.
I know you. I know that you're this great singer in the Vineyard. You're this great worship leader. You've been on some records that I helped make. Mm-hmm. But there are these other parts of you. And so maybe it would be helpful at the beginning here if you were to just let people know, who is Sarah Elmer? What are you doing? Who's your family? Where you live? What is your life like right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm Sarah Elmer, and I'm married to Joshua Elmer, and we have 3 kids who are crazy.
Yes.
Cora, Theo, Judah. Mm-hmm. So we live in a small...
And how many pets? Include
2
the pets.
Kevin and Frank.
Kevin's the cat, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's good.
Yeah.
Kevin is the cat, and Frank is the dog. Mm. So Josh didn't want to have pets, so he named them. So that's why I have those names.
Well, when I was in college, there was a guy that we used to go to... We went to his house sometimes, and he had a cat named Steve Jones.
That's pretty good.
And you had to call him by his full name.
Okay, so this is off, but I have a friend named Jillian who has a desire to name her cat Tom Hanks. One word, Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It just adds another level of dignity.
To the cat?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so you're married, and you have some kids and a couple of animals. Where do you live?
We live in Emmaus, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that sounds spiritual.
It is actually, and it's real close to Bethlehem and Nazareth. So it's like the pinnacle of spirituality.
Yeah,
I think is their sign that they have when you cross the pinnacle of spirituality. But so we live in Emmaus, Pennsylvania, which is sort of like it's like near Allentown. Nobody really knows where it is.
Yeah,
but we're pretty close to Philly and New York City, so it's a nice place for us right now.
Yeah. But you didn't always live there.
No.
Historically, where are you from?
I am from Syracuse, New York, originally.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was born there. Little known. Well, actually, a lot of people know this, but I lived in a motorhome for 4 years of my life when I was a kid, and we traveled all over the United States.
That is very crunchy.
Yeah.
That is very granola.
But my dad is a retired police officer, so
he's
it was not
hit.
crunchy. It was like the most structured like situation.
So you've been to every national park, I'm assuming?
Most. So we didn't go to Alaska, Hawaii, or...
Because you couldn't drive to Hawaii.
Right.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Although they have those like amphibious motorhomes. That was like the dream, you know? Like, but we had an old like school bus that was converted. And we lived in that. And everyone always assumed we were a traveling band, but we weren't. We were just escaping something. I don't know what. So yeah.
I feel like that's a really important part of your story, though.
It is. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like we just, it was something where my best friend, like, okay, let me paint a picture for you. So we were in Arizona. My 12th birthday party, we lived in, it was a resort, and you can't see it, but I'm making quote marks.
Air quotes.
Resort.
Yes.
And so we were there, and it was my 12th birthday. And at that point, my dad, who always has a job, it's just the kind of man he is, he was working at the resort doing something. I don't know. So we were there for a longer season than we were most places. So I had my birthday party there. And if you look back at pictures from my birthday party, it was in the clubhouse. So you have like a pool table. And then everybody there were like retirees. So there was no one there under 65. Like 65 would have been like...
Happy birthday, Sarah.
Yes. But kids don't know this, but those are the people you want to be friends with because they give you jewelry and lots of money.
Yeah.
It's like it's the best type of friend.
Yeah. So how many dollars did you get?
Oh, I don't remember, but I did get a lot of turquoise jewelry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you still have it? Did you pawn
No,
it?
I lose everything. I can't keep track of anything.
Did you lose it in your van?
Oh, that's a low blow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I repent. Okay. Hey, we'll move into maybe the purpose of this podcast a little bit here. Yeah, we should do that. Sort of the idea in this podcast is that it's a conversation about worship and spiritual transformation. That's why we call it the Ferment. And so I like to ask people who are on with me to just talk to me about a time when like you changed.
Oh.
Like in your life, you know? And maybe it's spiritual, or maybe it's just who you are as a person, because I kind of think that's spiritual too. But like how have you changed?
Oh, you know, I think that you saying that thing about living in the motorhome is an important part of my story.
Yeah.
It is, because change is something I'm very, very comfortable with. You know, every other day we have a new place we're seeing, a new friend to make, change is something I'm comfortable with. I was homeschooled. I went to a private school. I went to an inner city school. I went to college early, didn't finish, right? Change is kind of something that I kind of need, but it wasn't until I was married that I actually feel like around that age, I started to realize what transformation was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean.
What do you mean you woke up to transformation?
I think that when I think of the word change, I think it feels a little bit lighter to me, right? Like in situation.
Oh, yeah,
I
get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was something that I always felt like I'm flexible, I'm growing, I'm learning. But then it wasn't until things got kind of hard or that I actually realized what transformation might look like for me.
Yeah, and isn't that like, it always happens in marriage, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Like you love them.
Oh, you love them. But you think about it, when you see like in the zoo, two animals who are like forced to live in close quarters, it's not a natural thing, but it's beautiful because it shapes you.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Except the lions rarely look happy.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't.
But no, I hear you.
But I'm happy. So
no,
okay.
I know you're happy. And you and Josh are two of the happiest people I know. That's good. So you got married, and maybe just the friction that comes from beginning to work life out with another person, like intimately, became a driving factor for transformation.
Oh yeah, because you have to think about somebody else. Mm-hmm. You know, I think I tend to be a little bit focused on myself by nature. And so when all of a sudden you have someone else in the picture, you're like, oh, this doesn't work anymore for me just to think about me.
Yeah.
So that shifts the way you do everything a little bit, I think.
Yeah. So sort of the first transformation for you was just the married life and the shift towards thinking about someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. That was one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about like spiritual transformation? Like maybe like with God, has there been a theme in your life where God has been weaving himself in a new way or showing himself to you in a new way?
I think the theme, if I were to put one word, it would be trust. Just to trust him,
Yeah. Why is that the word that came?
Well, I'm a little bit of a control freak, you know?
Really?
Yes.
That wasn't an ironic really from
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
That wasn't, it
All right.
wasn't.
No, I am. I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I think that I feel better when I know what's going to happen and I can make a plan, And so when Josh and I got married, I had a plan for our lives. And at that point, he was sort of ambivalent about it. So it worked out really well because I could just brainstorm whatever I wanted, not having to, So when we were married, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, I don't know. We had been in it for a bit, and he decided he wanted to go back to school, which was actually very exciting because it felt like he was starting to really come alive. So we decided to leave home, and that was huge for me because I'd always been around family, like extended family. It's just
When you were with your immediate family, like in a bus.
Yeah, half of them. So my younger sister, I have 2 older siblings, but half of us were in this bus for, we were just together all the time. So when we decided to move, that was a huge trust piece for me. And I was very involved. I was on staff as a worship pastor at Vineyard Church in Syracuse, New York. And then when I had kids, stepped back, took some space, but I still was very involved there. And it's a huge piece. I mean, I started being a part of worship when I was 16. So it's like deeply rooted in who I would say that I am. Yeah, who are you? I'm Sarah. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a God lover, I'd probably throw in there, and I'm a worship leader. That's who I am. I have t-shirts.
And they're in the back. They're $20. You should consider
Just
them.
grab one.
Yeah.
But it's was a huge part of who I am, and I could still hold on to that piece when I was in Syracuse because I had people in my life who made a lot of room for me.
Yeah, and the infrastructure was just sort of built around that.
Yeah, family, take care of the kid. It was great.
Yeah.
So when we moved, it was all that changed. I actually did some scouting beforehand and talked to a pastor of a church near Philadelphia named Mark Tyndall, who's incredible. So I messaged him and I'm like, Mark, hey, pal, I'm coming to the area. You need to,
Yeah.
Would you like to have me as part of your,
Yeah. I could really change your life.
It's like one of those things that you do and then you think about it and you're like, what an idiot. Who sends an email like that?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
So I sent this email and he was so gracious and he's like, oh, Sarah, it'd be so great to have you. We don't have any jobs for you, but I do think, we're changing over our janitorial service. Would you like to clean the church?
Yes.
And I'm like, hell.
Yeah.
For real.
You weren't stoked.
No.
Yeah.
No. But it was I do need a job actually. And I normally, I would bartend or wait tables, but this seemed a little bit easier for
and you have a heart for church.
Yeah, church.
Yeah.
So, it was just a lot of me letting go of the things that I had really felt that were great about myself and helped me feel like I knew who I was.
Yeah. So you were in Syracuse and you had an infrastructure around you to be worship leader lady.
Yeah.
And then your husband's making a choice for school.
Mm-hmm.
You moved to the Philly area.
Yeah.
You send this somewhat forward email.
Yes.
And the response back is, well, you could be the janitor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I was.
Yeah. And how was that?
Actually, it had that. So when you say transformation, I would argue that there's nothing more transformational than cleaning toilets when you wish you could do something else.
How long did you do that?
I did that for maybe 8 months. It wasn't a long time. I had some things happen that we can talk about, but
that's a lot of toilets though.
It is. And some of the funny things that oh man, the staff there was so great. They'd ask me questions sometimes about what I thought about church things. And I was leading worship there. And so it was incredible. And it was one of the sweetest places I've been. But there is something to being in the bathroom, cleaning the toilet, and, you see people going in to have a meeting about things that you're passionate about, and you have something to offer. Like, I can offer something here.
I know about this.
I know things.
Yeah.
I know things.
Yeah.
And it's not even like they're not trying to do this. In fact, they were incredibly inclusive. But I watched them walk by like, do. And I'm thinking, I would want nothing more than to be there, not here. And then they're like, oh, hey, Sarah. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What can I do? What can I solve? And they're like, last week, I don't know that you replaced the toilet paper like fully. Could you add another one? And it's like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was kind of that serving that made me realize, like, I don't know that leading worship and cleaning bathrooms is that different from each other.
How?
Both are serving.
Yeah.
And I think of some of the times or feelings that I had when I'm cleaning up after people that feel a lot like what it feels like to pastor a team or or at my best, because I think that sometimes you let the role get in your head or whatever. But then when I was at my best as a worship pastor, worship leader, worship person, I was acting the same way that I would be taking care of something small.
Yeah.
And I felt like in that space of God saying, here are some small things for you to take care of. Like it was it changed my conversations with God so much more than all the years I led worship.
Okay. How did those conversations change?
They went something like, oh God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Why? And it gave me space to feel like I could be raw with him, and he would answer. And he would speak to me while I was cleaning floors or picking up stuff in kids' rooms, right? Just basic stuff.
Yeah.
And I just heard his voice so clearly doing small work.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was a season of transformation. It wasn't a moment of transformation. It was like a season of transformation.
No. And at that same time, Josh is going to school and we're living there and we're surrounded by an amazing group of people away from family. And we found out when we moved down there that I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like this is not, like if you were to pick any time to have a baby, when no one really has an income, this is like not ideal,
Yeah.
And so we found out that we were pregnant, and then that whole process is difficult for me anyway. I get pretty sick. It's a pretty gross thing. Yeah. And so we were processing that, and Josh and I had gone through just a lot of stuff in the years before. And this was kind of a beautiful way for us to connect over this baby again, right? Like we're moving someplace new. That's already beautiful for us. Hard, but we're like doing our own thing. Oh, it's totally adventure. And we're risking, which is scary, but fun. And then there's this baby, which is like, this wasn't planned, but wow, like this is beautiful. And so I was probably around 16 weeks, and then I lost the baby around then. Yeah.
And this is janitor moment as well, right?
Yeah. Some,
double whammy.
Yeah. It just felt a little unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how those are such difficult moments. Like, how did you and Josh process?
Well, it was hard because he was going through finals. And I think it's those type of things that make you realize that people process things differently.
Yeah.
Which has really drawn us very close to each other because it makes you have really raw conversations. But for me, it was the little things of people who sort of showed up to love me that I didn't really expect. It was our senior pastor staying and wiping down countertops and making sure we have what we need. So
Mark came over.
Oh yeah, Mark came over, and so did his wife, and watched my kids. And I think, this is an intense moment that I'm about to share.
Yeah.
But I went in, and we found out the baby had died, and it was terrible, and I was alone because we didn't have family to watch the kids. I thought I was just going in for something normal, And so I was alone, and I just remember sitting there with the ultrasound tech, just losing my mind. Like, and I found myself asking God questions like, are you kidding me? Like, really? Like, at this time, like, what kind of God does this, right? And that night when I came home, I was still carrying the baby.
Oh.
And I was, standing there, and I felt so clearly that God said, like, I was staring at a candle that Mark had actually lit in our kitchen, right? Like, just in the kitchen. And I'm staring at it, and I felt like God was saying, like, this is painful. Which him just saying that was like, thank you, Like, I want to pull myself up by my bootstraps. I want to apply this instantly to how this is going to make me a better person or whatever, right? I'm going to be able to speak to this is part of my story, right? But no, like, he didn't say that to me. He said, this is painful. And I just wept in front of that candle, And that really changed me.
So you're at a new place and you're doing a job you didn't want and you lose a baby alone. What changed? Like, I mean, I think I could like maybe put words in your mouth that I wouldn't want to do that. But like as you get some space from that or whatever, what does that season represent to you now? Or how did you go into it and come out of it? Because I know earlier you used the word trust.
Yeah. I think that season just is like when you are free falling, and the difference between like free falling with a trampoline under you and free falling with nothing underneath you, like that's two different scenarios. And I think that time made me realize that there's something under me to catch me. So I don't know how long the falls are ever, but there's something there, and that feels significant for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've, at least what I hear in your story is you have met God at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely feel like I have reached some of the depths of some sad places in my life. And it...
And I just want to say here as well, because I know you, that's really cool to hear you say, because you're a happy person and you're a jokester. And the reason at the beginning people were probably thinking I was rude to you at the beginning, but it's because we're just like, when we're together, we joke around a lot. And it's, that has a lot more weight for me to hear that, because I know that your natural inclination is towards humor, fun, lighthearted. I think you're a lighthearted person, right? Right. But part of your journey is to the depths.
Yeah. I mean, and I really enjoy the depths. Like, that's sort of my space on the side, I like to dive fairly deep alone, usually to some sad music and a mirror to cry in front of by myself. Maybe if I stick my lip out a little more, I look sadder.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no.
Maybe you are an Enneagram 4.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm a 7-4. I'm a 74.
You're 74.
No, I don't know.
I'm an Enneagram 74. Yeah. It's also interesting to me, just to go back quickly to that earlier story. It's interesting to me that in the kitchen, that you hear God say to you, "This is painful," because that feels like that feels like an invitation into grieving or
Yes.
permission to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, and I just am remembering this when you say that when I came out of surgery after losing the baby, my nurse, I just lost it, right? All of a sudden, I just felt very empty. And she looked at me and she put her hand on my face and she said, honey, this is significant. And that was just the day. So it was like God was giving me permission to not have to have control over everything in that moment. Like, you can lose it. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like as a worship leader, or just someone who, I don't know, wants to go into deep water in worship in terms of singing with people, leading people in a place, or just deep conversation, like it made me feel like those places are okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell you, one of the things, I don't love the story because it's painful.
No.
But one of the things I love about the story is I just think it's really great that that's what you heard from the Lord because, our tribe, our spiritual family here in the Vineyard or whatever, we're a charismatic group of people. Like part of our story is that people get healed. Part of our story is that God does miracles.
Yep.
You could tell me stories about those. I could tell you stories about those. Like I've seen bona fide miracles in my life. I just think it's really awesome to also hear you tell a story about God saying this is painful, which sounds like an invitation to grieving and an acknowledgement and permission to experience the pain, right? I think that's so needed in charismatic renewal streams of the church.
Oh, yes.
Because sometimes, honestly, sometimes those feelings or those acknowledgments are, if they're not explicitly off limits, then they're sort of like implicitly off limits.
Oh, right. It's very hard to feel like you can be vulnerable when you have things saying that to be in pain or to be sad or depressed or whatever is just wrong. And I think if you can't be vulnerable, how can you ever change? You know?
Well, that's such a good point.
And
and how can you be vulnerable if you have a theological grid that is locking that space off from you?
Oh, I can't imagine. I'm thinking of even things that we don't have time to talk about in my life, but I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have space to lose it a little bit, to feel sad, to sink down to the depths, I feel like I heard God more in those places, And an interesting thing is around a little bit after this is when we did Kyrie. So Ted
Really?
Kim wrote Kyrie Eleison.
Yes.
And I got to sing it. And that song is something that is like when you don't have anything else to say, right? Like when you're just like, I can't even say a word, right? You can sing, just Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
Like I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Amazing. I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not right away. There was processes in there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a part of the arc.
Oh yeah. It's, it's like the journey. It's a piece of it. Yeah.
You're a worship leader.
Mm-hmm.
You're obviously like one of our powerful lady worship leaders. And like one of the values in the Vineyard is to give women authority and to see women lead in all the capacities that a person can lead,
Yeah.
And it was something that Tina and I were talking about a moment ago in another podcast that we were recording.
Yeah.
Even in the Vineyard, worship is still, it's a little bro-ish.
Yeah.
And I don't even feel guilt or shame about that. I just think it is what it is.
Oh, yeah.
And it's changing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's still mostly guys, right?
Yeah.
So I would love for you to riff or to share what you would like to share to maybe the girls and the women who are leading worship.
Yeah.
Not just in the Vineyard, but just in churches, because there's going to be a lot of people who listen to this who are not a part of the Vineyard. And,
Yeah.
and they're in your boat,
Yeah.
What would you like to say? Because I think you're doing it well.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So can I also speak to the guys about it?
Yeah. No, they obviously. Yeah.
Because I think that, all right, so let me see here. So my story is when I came into the Vineyard Church in Syracuse, I didn't know this at the time, but my future father-in-law was the senior pastor there. And leading worship, I could barely play piano. I was at the Vineyard in Syracuse, and John Elmer just kind of, I don't know, he just believed in me for no reason. Like, I could sing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really play.
Yeah.
And I was I was goofy.
How old were you?
16.
Yeah, but everyone's goofy at 16,
I know, but
right?
I think I was exceptionally goofy. But who does that? So I think that him taking the time to be like, you got this. Great. And I think there were lots of instances where he low key had my back, like where there were things that he didn't make me have to deal with right away. Yeah. With relational issues, he kind of nipped it in the bud initially, but then threw me into the water when it needed to happen, right? Yeah. He helped me kick out some sharks, punch them in the face.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of...
So you felt supported.
Oh, I felt so supported. And I had what I would like to call a middle-aged man band.
Yeah. As
my band. And even in that space, like, I felt supported by them. I felt like they were for me. I mean, there was mansplaining, like...
I was going to ask you, did you get mansplained?
Oh my gosh. It was like, mansplaining was like, so it would be like, all right, everybody, I'd like, maybe we could do like a little more electric here. And be, well, what she's trying to say, well, no, I think what she's actually trying to say, So yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah. But I was young, and so I had a lot of space made for me by men who believed in me. I think that the interesting thing about you saying that it's kind of a bro club, is that, I think that I am very comfortable in the bro club, in that growing up, I kind of always was, which has clicked with me recently, that when you're kind of the girl who hangs out with the guys, you kind of learn how to adapt in ways that you probably don't need to, right? You're like, well, tone down being emotional, find something, be funny, yes. Like, right? You find those things. And so I think that even now, feminine attributes are not often seen as being a leader, which really stinks. Even sometimes when people identify women as leaders, what they're actually identifying are things that they find in them that are more traditionally masculine. So there's still not a ton of room for feminine leadership, in my opinion. But
I do think it's interesting. Okay, I don't want to interject here real quick.
No, please do.
I do think it's interesting that one of the first female worship leaders in the Vineyard was Cindy Rethmeyer. And I think Cindy, I'm making a generalization here, and Cindy's not here, and I'm going to have her on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I think Cindy, for me anyway, represents like a very feminine sort of like approach to worship leading.
Oh, yes.
Like it's filled with gentleness. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very cool that that's like in our DNA.
Yep.
Right?
And Cindy is actually, if I were to say who has had some of the greatest impact on my life as a mother, as a woman, a worship leader, it's Cindy Rethmeyer.
Really?
Yeah. So it's
Great.
like just the small conversations that I know I can just always call her and she'll talk to me about stuff that has changed me a ton. And I think with her, she's just always so authentic. Like, she's just her all the time. And I think you're right. Like, this kind of feminine expression was like, it was huge. And so I think that in our context now, at least this is what I feel. I shouldn't speak for everybody. This is what I feel.
No, that's great.
I feel like as a woman, I often have to yell to be heard, even among people who really support me. It's something that it has changed so much, even since I've started doing this, which isn't that long in the whole scheme of things. As a woman or a girl who's really trying to figure out, like, what does it look like for me to do this? I think that just knowing that there's a place for you is important. And that place isn't just as a backup singer or maybe like a guest piccolo player.
Thank God.
Or key, right? Yeah, seriously.
Hey, Sarah, can you play some keyboards and sing some harmonies with me?
Could you just could you play some Yaz flute as well?
Yeah.
Pull it out of your hard shell case?
Yeah.
No, like I think that there's so much of a need for that. Like, and that is often what I miss in worship is some of those tender moments. Like, I'm not saying men are incapable of tender, intimate moments, but I'm sorry, but like women kill that.
They totally do. I mean,
and not all women do, but a lot of women do.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, and I'll just tell you that a lot of the trend, even in modern worship, even with women, is not towards that.
No,
it's more towards power, which, okay, that's welcomed, right?
Yeah.
Females that have power on the microphone, like no one's arguing against that.
No.
Yeah, right.
No, sing loud, yeah.
But at the same time, I hear what you're saying. Like there's this other part of worship leadership that is needed. I don't know what the word here is, but I feel it.
Yeah. And to be honest, I don't know that I fully know what it is. Like, it's something that is a very new discovery in myself. So this is like, talk about like change and transformation. You're kind of I'm still in the tank right now in this, where I'm discovering parts of me that I have shut down because it hasn't felt like needed or wanted, like, and so I'm still exploring this. But I would say,
what would you say to the guys?
Oh, to the guys?
Yeah, because you said, I want to talk to the guys too. What would you say to the guys?
I would say that, when I think of who I interact with all the time, all places, like trying to do leadership, not just as music, right? Not just directing a band, but trying to interact with a team or people I pastor. I very rarely have conflict with other women and being able to raise women up. It's like, it's great. I think that the biggest part of my story is a man who was willing to take a chance on me, right? And to make space for me.
Yeah, you're talking about John Elmer when you were 16, just giving you room.
And he pastored me, right? He took time with me and it wasn't weird. And this is before we were related, right? He pastored me. He asked me hard questions, and I've had many men in my life who have done that. And I have many women in my life now, especially, that are doing that. And that's incredible too. You can't compare, right? They're just two separate experiences and both necessary. So I think what I would say to men is make space for women to be a part of your teams. And
then what I hear even what you're saying is actively engage, not just like make space and get out of the way, but like be a part.
Be a part of it. You have to take each scenario as it comes, but empower your women on your teams to start playing an instrument if they're not already. Not because it's necessary. Like, you would never want to say like, hey, Karen, like, I know that you really can't play keys, but it's really killing our vibe that you're not playing keys. So can we just mute you and you play? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But like, I just think there's nothing more. So as a worship leader, there's nothing more empowering than leading a group of 10 people in worship. And I gotta tell you, when I say I barely play keys, like, there's no word for how I play guitar. It's so bad. It's so bad. But I really love leading a group of 5 people in worship. And I would not be able to do that on my own and decide where I'm going without having to confer with somebody else, like, without that. So I would say encourage your the girls and guys, if you have guys that just sing, which you don't see a lot, but
it is more common with the girls, right?
It is.
There's a lot of girls who just stand behind the microphone.
Right.
Which is, maybe that's what they need to do, but maybe not either, huh?
Right. And I think that I wouldn't even think this way if I were to look and see equal parts men and women leading without an instrument, right? So to me, that says, like, something's up, or, and I think that sometimes allowing someone who's just learning an instrument to lead from it means that sometimes you're sacrificing some sound. Or you're saying, hey, you can lead from it, but you play only this, and we're going to have someone else also fill in the spots, right? So I think that's important. But also, guys, allow yourself to be led by women, Like, put yourself in roles where you are having to follow a woman. Like, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what would you say to the girls?
Oh, man.
In the Vineyard and then in other movements as well?
You can do it. There's space for you. It's not like tokenism. Like, we got the girl, we got whatever. Like, we need you. I need you. I need you.
Mm-hmm. That's great. All right. One final question?
Yeah.
You cool with that?
Yeah,
I think we got time.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. I'm just going to ask you the final question that I ask everyone.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I didn't even cue you in on this. So this is coming at you blind.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't even have to be, we don't have to go deep here.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to know a time that you experienced like overwhelming joy. And it doesn't have to be the most joy you ever experienced, but just like, maybe just a time of joy.
Okay, so this one is related to the story we had when I got pregnant after having miscarriage, and when I gave birth to my son Theodore. It was like, it was so much joy. I remember when he was born. In the hospital room. I remember when he was born, the only thing I could say is I looked at him and I said, you made it.
Yeah.
You made it.
Yeah.
And out of the most painful part of my life, it was like so much joy.
I feel that.
Yeah,
I feel
it just
that.
changed me.
Yeah, that's a great story. We do not need to add anything to that. Oh, man. Sarah, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for what you do. Thanks for who you are. All right. All right, everybody. Hey, if you want to know who Sarah is more, or if you have never heard her on a record, you can check her out specifically on a Vineyard record called Kyrie, Eleison, and she sang the title track, and you should check it out. All right, everybody. Till next time.
Hey, everybody. This is Casey Corum, the producer of the Ferment Podcast. Thanks for listening. I got a couple quick things for you. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. We've got a bunch of exciting shows coming up, and we don't want you to miss a thing. So on social media, you can find us on Instagram at the Ferment Podcast, and on Twitter, you can find us at FermentCast. Please let us know what you think of the podcast by leaving a review on iTunes. All right, see you next time. Peace.